Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm here with Marco Benedetti and Sherryl Smith, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on tarot history. More specifically, the very early tarot history, the Italian decks, which Marco and Sherryl dedicate so much time studying. So, first off, how are you guys today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to this.
Hey, hello.
So, I guess we could probably start at the very beginning. And my only goal for this video was basically to have, I wanted to sort of, and I mentioned this to you guys, but I wanted to bring the work that you guys do to YouTube because there is a lot about history on YouTube, but not so much with the early decks. I know Sherryl has a blog and she does wonderful, great work on her blog. You're a card maker. You're one of the few card makers that I know of that are still in existence. So I figured it'd be really nice to have you guys sort of together to be able to discuss the early decks. And I will learn as much from this, hopefully, as my viewers will. So I'm just really excited. And so I guess we should probably start at the very beginning. So what is the earliest tarot deck to your knowledge?
That's the problem. If what you mean for tarot deck? So there is the famous Marciano deck, the one restored by Robert Place.
This one,
yes, that's one. But it's not what we call today tarot deck, because it has only 14, I think, if I remember well, trumps. So the oldest, I know, in my opinion, the oldest deck with 22 trumps was the Charles VI.
Charles VI. And you recently just...
the one we know of. But it's possible it is the second or the third. We have 10, maybe 10 decks of the first century. First 150 years on, I don't know, hundreds of card makers.
Yeah, so that's kind of where Marco and I disagree a little bit, because I think
yes, I know that you disagree.
The two Visconti decks. So but who knows? Maybe Charles VI is the first, but I'm not too sure.
So, I'd be interested to hear more about that, Charles. So what exactly? What is your opinion on that exactly? Like what?
You think it's Visconti or another one?
Visconti or yeah.
Yeah, the Visconti de Madrone and the Brambilla deck, the two that Duke Filippo Maria commissioned around.
You're all right that they're older. I agree.
Yeah, they're for about 1441 or 1442, and I really kind of don't think that Charles VI is earlier than that, because actually the first documentation that we have of Tarot is 1440, so it wasn't around. Probably invented in the 1430s and.
Music. I completely agree with you on this, Sherryl.
Oh,
don't get me wrong. But I think that Modrone was 16 by 5 and Brambilla, we don't know, frankly, we don't know.
So what was the date you said for the Modrone?
I didn't set I said that it was a 16 trump.
Oh, yeah.
It was 16 by 5, in my opinion.
Yeah, they weren't like the solid, Tarocchi decks that we know of with the 22 trumps. They were variants, but they were so close that I think they were like, they were working their way up to to the standard deck that we have now. Whereas the Tortona deck that Robert Place did, I don't put that in the category of tarot at all. That's, to me, it was kind of the same idea, an allegorical card game with extra pictures and stuff, but it has no resemblance to tarot, really.
It's fantastic.
If we for sure Visconti is older, at least Modrone and Brambilla. On this we agree. Then we have to say they were yet tarot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I agree that the modern tarot is based on Visconti. If you look the few cards from Visconti to Wirth, so you go through all the Tarot de Marseille, you go to through Wirth. you have the same card, even the same object on the table, the same angle of the table, looking in that direction. This is unbelievable. Then you have a few cards that changed. They are namely for the Marseille, the lovers, two or three characters, and the three stars, moon, and sun.
Mm-hmm.
They changed. And if you consider these four cards have do not have a one character, one single character. They have one character in the sky and other characters on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the cards that changed the most. Then, of course, you have little, sorry, go on, Sherry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was saying that, of course, we have a small difference. Okay, we have the hourglass, now we have a lamp, but it's always an old man walking, holding something in the hand. If we accept, and I know it's very hard, because you always forget this, myself too, that these cards were not used for reading, but just for playing card.
Right.
Doesn't matter anybody if the hourglass become a lamp.
Yeah. Well, that's the amazing thing about tarot history as well, is because it's constantly changing. You know, every few years there's another deck discovered. You know, it's like the Nicholas Roll con, for instance, or any of those other decks that, you know, just pop up that sort of change the details. It's sort of like a living and breathing kind of history, you know, where it's just constantly changing. We just have to sort of build on the available information at the time. And
well, yeah, I've often said that the tarot history is a matter of connecting the dots, and we have so few dots. We make up stories about how we connect the dots, and we have so few dots. And then a researcher, someone like Franco Pratesi, comes up with something he found in the archives, and all of a sudden all the dots shift and we have to come up with another story. So that's why I try very hard not to say, oh no, this is the first deck, because, you know, tomorrow I might be, discovered to be totally wrong because somebody has discovered something else. Yeah. Basically. But, you know, Marco brought up like the hermit having sometimes an hourglass and sometimes a lamp. And I think that makes a big difference to how you read the card. Is he a searcher with the light, or is he an allegory for old age and time? And so I think card readers, it really is necessary to learn about the history of the decks that you use and the context, and you'll pay attention to details like that.
It's so interesting. And so now when these cards were printed, this was pre the Italian cards in the early days. These were hand painted, right? These were not block printed like they are today, or like they were later on, I should say, in France, for instance. They hadn't adopted the block printing yet, or what was the art style? Is basically what it was, because there's a lot about this I don't really know about the Italian decks.
We don't know for sure.
I've kind of done a study on this, because that's the one thing that drives me nuts, is that all we have are these fancy gold leaf, really expensive cards that the Dukes commission. But I believe that there were block printed decks first that everybody was playing with, and then the aristocrats said, "Hey, I want some fancy gold decks to show off to my friends." And it drives me nuts that we don't have any block printed decks from that time. The earliest ones we have are the Budapest and the Rosenwald deck. And I think if you want an idea of what the decks may have looked like, there are 3 phases of block printing in the 15th century. And the Rosenwald really goes back to the first phase that ended about 1425 or 1430. So kind of curved lines, very little hatching, not much of a context, just the figures, not much background. So I think Rosenwald might give us an idea of what people what card players are playing with in 1440, while the aristocrats were commissioning their gold decks.
Now, Marco, do you have that deck there? Do you do have that one
Yes,
handy, right? The Rosenwald?
Yes, I have it. I have the sheets.
Oh, you have the sheets. Okay, so what are we before we look at? So what exactly are we looking at? This is the original sheets from the museum in Budapest, is it, or?
No, this is a print I made with the Rosenwald file.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was a print, but it was a copy of how it exists in the museum, right? Is that what that is? Or
yes, it's the what we have in the museum. The one I restored with the deck that you have, I think.
That's really beautiful. Well, would you mind holding it up one more time? I didn't get really a good look at it. That's incredible.
That is great.
We have 3 sheets with 74 cards. This is the major. Then we have other 2 sheets. It's not the same deck.
Let me actually pin you for a minute here so we can see this bigger. Beautiful. Okay.
The size is not exactly the same, so it's not the same deck. And is also more refined and as drawing. Problem is I don't see the video. And with these 3 sheets, we have a Spanish deck. So with 3 figures, remember, queen, if you have a queen, you have for sure a tarot deck with Italian seeds. So the second and third sheets I show you was a deck of 48 cards with pips 1 to 9 and 3 figures per set.
Pips 1 to 9. Okay, so there was no 10s in that, or?
Yes, the Spanish deck.
Oh, in the Spanish deck, right? Okay, yeah.
So with these, you putting together the first one, the real Rosenwald. You have also 3 queens. Where are the queens? Here. So to complete the deck, you only miss the fool, the queen, and the 4-10.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, all right. So I mean, you basically had to, you have a lot to work on to make educated guesses on what they would have looked like, which is, I think, is fabulous. And that's what you use to create the current deck that you have available, right?
Yes.
And just so everybody knows, anybody watching, Marco now has decks available on makeplayingcards.com, and also, are you still in GameCrafter, or?
I'm leaving.
Okay. Okay. So you're shifting. Okay.
Yes, this is the here. This is the new box.
I love those new boxes. They are so cool.
And this is the version with, it's difficult to show you with this camera, the bordi rivoltinati, is overlapped edges. Okay. So the back is bigger than the card. Then you flip on the front. It was made by children because they have small hands and they were cheap.
Wow.
And this is how cards were made in Italy till the end of the last century. I read somewhere that the last one was made in 1930, something like this. Read on a collector's site, but I don't know.
That amazes me because it's just so much manual labor. I mean, thousands and thousands of little elves, probably child labor, sitting in back rooms, folding edges over. But I also have a Rosenwald with the folded edges that Marco made for me, and it is, I read with it every day. I pull my cards of the day from 2 cards from that deck and 2 cards from his mini gold deck, and it shuffles so beautifully. It's a totally different experience shuffling a deck with those folded borders.
Yes, in fact, the cards are more strong. They have less wear. They shuffle better, and well, it worked. It was a good system.
How thick is the whole entire deck? That's what I'm curious of, because it seems like it would be a pretty thick deck to have that extra paper. Also, and how many sheets do you use? Do you use 3 sheets, 2 sheets?
No, I use only 2 sheets.
2 sheets, okay.
The original system was 1 strong sheet in the middle and 2 thin for front and back.
Yeah.
Let's say that I print on the big one. I mean, I'm not trying to do the philological build like 500 years ago.
Well, we have better paper available to us now, you know, and more options, and so, you know, it's probably not that practical. Although I've been making my cards with 3 sheets, and I've made some with 2, but I'm still experimenting. But right now I'm using 2 very thin sheets on the outsides of the paper. I've actually, so this is one. This is the John Dodal, and what I'm don't laugh at the backs. This is a personal deck. This is not anything I'm looking to. This is just an experiment that I did. I call it the Frankenstein deck. But basically, what I use is I'm using Japanese paper now because it's much thinner. So, but it's not so thin that it falls apart, but there's just a certain thickness I have to find. And then for the middle, I found what was called cartridge paper, which is what I found. I read in a one of the art encyclopedias that's what was used as the core. And I was like, well, what is cartridge paper? Like, we don't use cartridge paper. What they're referring to when they call cartridge paper is the paper that they used to store gunpowder in. You see the people tearing it off and putting it in the muzzle. That was what's called cartridge paper. I think I have that right. But so it was it was a very tough material. Well, it was a very tough material, and
I see.
I think it's the closest thing that you'll find to cartridge paper now is in like what people used to like watercolor art and so forth, like you know, mixed media paper type stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll find in a pad. So that's what I've been experimenting with. But the problem is a lot of it's too thick. So it's like that's the #1 problem I've had. But I think I got a pretty good system now, and I've been having a lot of fun. So,
well, all those decks were very thick.
Yeah, exactly.
May I say that I partially disagree with Sherryl about the origins of wood blocks or luxury.
So you don't think that there were wood block decks before the luxury ones?
I think that I think that wood blocks came before, but card games came before. So I think that wood blocks came before luxury decks. But in my opinion, tarot was invented by an aristocrat or someone working for an aristocrat. So I think
we differ totally. We could argue this all day.
No, but I love it. I love this. This is perfect because it's like, you know, you're presenting what both sides are, and
of course, we don't know who's right.
Right.
We only have opinion. We say, well, in my opinion, this is more likely than this. I think it's more likely that it was invented in a court because it's refined. The original tarot is.
I don't think.
You don't think?
I don't think it's that refined. The thing is, if you know, that I mean, this is like the big. You know, the big argument among a lot of tarot historians, you know, was it invented in a court or is it invented in a more, you know, populist thing? And I think if a courtier had invented the game of tarot to amuse an aristocrat, I think we would see a lot of humanism in there. We would see classical references. And all we've really got is popular culture and Christianity. So I think that it was meant to be a more populist kind of game. It tells a very typical Christian story because that's something that everybody knew. I mean, if they wanted, in order to play the game, you really have to have a hierarchy of cards. So you know what card takes what. You know, the tower takes the Pope, the star takes the tower. You know, you need some kind of a hierarchy. If Tarot was invented in a court, they could have used Dante, they could have used Petrarca, they could have, you know, used all sorts of classical references to come up with some kind of a story. But instead, it was just plain old Christianity, which everybody knew. So.
Well, I think that there are classical references in these cards.
Yeah, that's the Charles VI, which I don't think that relates to like the original Tarot. That's somebody else's deck from Florence or Ferrara.
No, it's not from Ferrara.
That's another argument we have.
That's fantastic, though. No, I love that. It's really just.
It'd be so boring if we agreed.
This is like tarot history, Jerry Springer here. You know, it's just like get up.
Jerry, I show you one card. Where is? Do you know what card it is?
Yeah, that's strength, and that is that could be a classical reference. That could also be a biblical reference to Samson and the pillars in the temple.
No, we're speaking about Ferrara, Florence, Bologna.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know. I couldn't say.
You see the column?
Yeah.
Yes, I told you there are very few differences in iconography in tarot cards, except before I mentioned it before with two elements. This one which have some difference because as a column. The column is present in Bolognese tarot, in tarocchino, tarocco bolognese, in minchiate, which is the Florentine evolution of tarot, and otherwise, for strength, you have a lion. You have a lion on Visconti, and you have a lion in the only deck we know from Ferrara or Venice of the Eastern. I show you another block here. The Budapest. You have only part of the card. It's this one. But this is the only deck we have from Ferrara or Venice, and as the lion. So, in my opinion, the column in the strength is a strong evidence for Charles VI coming from Florence. I don't say Bologna because we know that Bologna imported from Florence tarot later. So, if it's not Venice, Ferrara, or Milano, it's Florence. That's why this is the main evidence I see for the origin of Charles VI in Florence.
Yeah, I have to agree.
One more.
No, I'm actually agreeing with you.
You actually agree with me. Also, we have the eagles in Ferrara, like in Visconti. You see the Empress as the eagle.
Oh,
and in all the Florentine decks, Emperor and Empress have no eagle.
Yeah. You know, I would like you to show some more of your Charles VI decks, because to me, one of the most magical things is when a deck that has just been, you know, those messed up kind of ugly sheets, somebody like Marco or like Sullivan Hismans or Pablo Robledo brings them to life, and you can actually hold them in your hand and shuffle them. And so it was one of my more magical tarot moments was receiving my Charles VI deck. So I would like to see more cards.
Yes, please show us more cards, Marco. This is a deck I don't have, but I've been pondering getting it.
Well, what's interesting about this is because, you know, there's the Visconti Sforza, all those gold cards, but as far as other traditions like the Florentine tradition or Bologna, there are only a small handful of these hand-painted cards. And so if you get Marco's deck, you get, because he's combined them all, and gives you extra cards. So you get almost that entire tradition in your hands.
Yes,
it's really
it was a patchwork. The Chartist is a real patchwork because we have 16 trump plus a page of spades remaining of Chartist. But we have other decks of the same era. One is the Ecuados Deck, from which I took the Bagatto. Here is the old version, is reverted. The original is looking in the other side. And also is slightly smaller, the Hercules, but you can see you have the same structure of the card. You have a border, you see the red and black with dots. Actually, it was silver. Red is the base for a silver foil with puncture. In the form something similar to the Medici coat of arms, by the way. 6 dots, another dots in the middle. And this is the card that made me think that it was possible to build this deck. It's the last that was found in Palermo. And it's very ruined. You see there is a hole where the white you see in the middle. And this is a part of the Alessandro d'Este deck, which is considered the broader deck of Charles. And we have 6 trumps, 4 trumps of these decks in Catania, always in Sicily. So in the same city, 10 years ago, something like this, they found a few more cards, including this beautiful Empress. And when I got this Empress, I said, maybe we can do it, because this is the Emperor, the Charles VI Emperor. You see the hats, the crowns, it makes it okay, they can stay together. So I have a Bagatto from Hercules d'Este. I have the Empress. Now I have 18 cards. I miss only 4 trumps to complete the series.
That's phenomenal. What is the significance of Charles VI? So it's obviously you don't agree exactly on the exact details, like whether it's the first one or not. But like, for instance, what do we know about it for sure? Like, what are the things that we do know about Charles VI?
Very little. For sure, is the biggest ancient series of trumps. I mean, Visconti's force has 20 trumps, but 6 were made later. So the original are only 14. These are 16. So this is the biggest series of illuminated trumps. Moreover, the Charles VI is the father of Bolognese Tarot, because if you look at the few cards changing, star, moon, and sun of the Bolognese Tarot are the same of the Charles VI.
Yeah, I actually have one tarot of Bologna. I think the only one I have here is the Museo Internazionale, this one.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I mean, it does look very similar. I don't know. I couldn't tell whether this was drawn or block printed, though, when I was looking at it.
This is a remake. This is the remake.
Oh, this one is. Oh, it is a remake. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Remake. I'll show you the facsimile.
Oh, cool. You have that one?
Sure.
Do you do this deck as well?
Sure.
Yeah, the Almondo, right? I love the colors of the Almondo deck.
Yes, the Almondo is sold out, but this is Carte Fine dalla Torre. You see?
Oh, yeah, the sun, moon, and star. Yeah.
Yeah, wait. Yeah. So we have two astronomers in the, where is? No, three astronomers here.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. I don't see what I show you.
I have a problem
Because
too.
I,
Everything.
because I have to put in front of my face. Okay. These three cards. This probably came from how do we say, the Epiphany, when the three sage men came to honor Jesus on 6th of January. Okay.
Mhm.
And suppose this, one of them is giving a crown to Jesus. Then you have two astronomers in the moon. Show you the Chalcis.
Wow.
Yeah.
The same subject. Then we have the sun. Okay. One is sitting, one is standing, but both.
Spinning. Yeah.
That's much different from the deck I have. It's very much different. I actually really like that version. It looks better. These have big borders. I've trimmed the borders on mine because I felt they were very big, but I'm going to want to see more of that.
Well, the deck is very big. I don't know why they make so big. This is the original size, that is very small, how the old hardware.
Is that available for purchase, that deck?
Sure.
Through you? Okay. All right. Very good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to show more decks as well, of decks that are available. You know what I mean? Because be interested to see everything you have. I don't know, is that listed somewhere on your Facebook page or?
Yes, on my personal Facebook, you can find everything. Okay. And now this deck is on the Game Crafter site.
Okay.
But this is one of the decks that I prefer to make by hand because of this aspect ratio. I mean, I'll show you how it came out at the Game Crafter.
This is great.
What fascinates me is like the astronomers and stuff, and the card, they show up again in Belgium in like, the Deoto and, the Rouen Brussels pattern.
Yes.
They kind of went underground for a while and popped up.
So if you want to, you may cut the borders, but you have these two white bands on the side, on the commercial. This is because the standard size.
So that's the Bolognese region, and there are many different regions, and all the cards differed from region to region, right? I mean, the cards are very, very different.
Well, as I told you, what I studied more in tarot history was the origin of these few cards that changed during time. Because when I started playing with tarot, like I think everybody, I decided that all the decks were wrong. And I said, okay, I'll make my deck. And I wasn't able to paint. And well, it's a long story, but I had to study the evolution of the drawing. At the time, we have only the Stuart Kaplan Encyclopedia. There was no internet, tarot history group, and so on. So it was very difficult to get this information. Anyway, you see that you have one tradition, this is the one we have seen now, the Bolognese, the Chalcis Bolognese. Then with a switch, we have the Vieux Tarot.
Vieux, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I was like, it looks exactly like the Vieux.
Yes,
very similar.
Similar. I've prepared the Vieux here to show you this because they look similar, but this is the moon. So the card that you have with the sun, the Bolognese sun, become Vieville moon.
Wow.
I think somebody got confused in the print shop.
Yes. And this is a star. The drawing is the same of the Ercole d'Este moon. So this is also switched.
Hmm.
Wow.
Finally, Sherry, of course, will not agree on this. As far as I know, Vieville is the first deck with lovers with 3 persons and not 2. I think it's the older one. And in my opinion, no, it's not the card. Yes, it's this one.
Mhm.
I have a horrible light here. My opinion, this card is variation of this one. It's another shift.
Okay, so that's the Vieville lovers and the
You have,
Lucio.
you have something in the sky surrounded by rays. Imagine this old dirty, someone want to copy, don't understand exactly what's upstairs. 2 persons.
I guess it's possible. It's a stretch of the imagination, but it's possible.
Anyway, now, of course, these are hypotheses. Anyway, this is Vieville, and from Vieville, you know, you have the Belgian tarot with the modification of Pope and Popes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting, you know, how those old Charles VI images somehow ended up in Belgium in the 1600s. You know?
Yes, because we have 2 streets. This is one street. We have both Ercole d'Este and Charles VI in Vieville. Mm-hmm. Because they start. And remember that card, which one? The one with the old sage with the moon of Ercole d'Este is a card that you find also in Minchiate.
Yeah.
So Minchiate, this is another reason, because I think that Ercole d'Este, yes, of course, Ercole d'Este was in Ferrara, was a city, mm-hmm. But I think that deck was made in Florence because the same drawing was used later for the Minchiate. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have no proof, just a hypothesis. Anyway, this is what
makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah. So this is one route. The other route is the route that takes to Marseille Tarot. Actually, it's not Marseille, it's Lyon, where the decks were actually made. Because from the north of Italy, we only have the Visconti and few cards copied from Visconti. And we have not a strong symbols in star, moon, and sun. Then one day they found this sheet. This is the so-called Chariot sheet in Milan. And we have the oldest sample of Marseille star, moon, and sun. See the star, the moon, or we have no dogs, but
which deck is this now? What is this called? It looks very Marseille, but it's kind of a
Carry sheet is a sheet of the Carry collection at Benedetti, Yale.
So this is basically a bridge between Italy and France.
Yes. Oh, this is so important, this deck. Wow. Just looking at it, it's like it's fascinating. You can see with the moon, and you could just see that, and the pips especially. It's like very Tarot de Marseille, but it's very Italian. Once again, what is this called now? This deck?
Carry, C-A-R-Y.
Okay, Carry.
Carry sheet, and that's all really that exists. I think is it just that one sheet, Marco? I think.
Yes,
that's all there is.
We have, and we have another interesting thing here. Here we have these 3 cards that are still in Marseille style, but the lovers, we have only half lover, but definitely there are two, not three person.
I would like to see somebody take this deck and maybe take some liberties, but to create something from it, at least a set of trumps. It would be interesting just to, you would have to take some artistic liberties, but you could probably, take an educated guess on what it looked like. What do you got there? 2, 4, 6, 12. I don't know, like 20 cards there you can probably get.
Well, of course, I've considered completing this deck, but I should invent too much, really too much.
Well, that's okay as long as people know that. You know what I mean? It's like, as long as they know it's based slightly on the history, and you've invented some things. I don't know. What do you think about that, Cheryl?
I'm not too thrilled with hybrid decks. I think maybe some should just be left alone. If you have to recreate more than half of the trumps, and we don't even have any suit cards here, that's why I've never purchased. Was it Lo Scarabeo? I think has done these hybrid. I think the Visconti de Madrone or one of those decks.
The Extensi deck.
These, yeah, and I just
Based on Chelsea's, but switched on modern tarot with chance on pip cards.
Yeah, so these hybrids, I just why bother?
No, I totally get it. I understand what you're saying for sure. For me, partially, I just like having things, but you're right. I mean, as far as the history is concerned, it could confuse things, and
Well, I think I took a lot of freedom building the Chelsea's, and because it's a patchwork. There are cards that hardly stay well side by side. Let me show.
Well, it's a patchwork, but you didn't invent anything, right? You had all the cards there, so it's not a hybrid modern and 15th century deck, which is
this comes from two different decks, and you see the style completely different. Then I found a way. Yes, you are right, Shirley. I didn't invent anything. I put together the cards. And we got the deck. What I rebuilt, actually, I only rebuilt digitally the pips in Chelsea's. The missing cards were obtained by other cards, as I show you, the Ecuados Deck. Or this is nice. This is the Wheel of Fortune. This is rebuilt. There's the remake. Because it was missing. This is another sheet. Where is the year? Where is the wheel? My goodness. Here.
That's the Rothschild sheet, right?
You see.
Yeah.
And it is the same card. Okay. We have to arrange better with the second camera. Anyway, but except this, I only took together existing cards. Having to make from scratch is too much freedom, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Very interesting. So what are some of your favorites, Cheryl? You said you brought some decks to show. Is there anything you want to show today or talk about?
Actually, the decks that I brought aren't 15th century. So if we want to stay there,
it's up to you guys what you want to talk about. I mean, if you want to talk about that or.
Well, 15th century, we have 4 decks. I'd say you have Visconti, Chelsea's, Rosenwald, and Budapest.
Yeah, unless we want to get into the Visconti Sforza, but that's a whole another thing.
Well, I mean, I don't. If you did you want to talk about the Visconti Sforza or?
No, actually, when you mentioned like different regional types.
Yes.
of cards, and it's like there is the Florentine and the Bolognese, and then there's Milan with the Visconti Sforza, and one a very different one is Sicily, but there's also Piedmont, and that's Giordano Berti has been doing a lot with Piedmont decks.
Okay.
So I brought some of those. In fact, I've been procrastinating on doing a review for my blog for his. No, actually, oops, no, this isn't Piedmont. That's Milan.
I don't understand this word, Sherry. Sorry.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Piedmont.
Piemontese.
Piedmontese.
Piemontese. Yes.
Okay.
It's Piedmont. It's Piedmont in English.
Piedmont.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Piedmont.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay. So that's the regional style. Giordano found a stash of sheets, like Marco has been holding up these sheets of cards, which is how they were printed, and then somebody cut them up into individual cards. And Giordano has found a whole bunch of sheets that printers had to register them, like with the tax collector or city hall or something. You had to hand them a sheet and say, this is what I'm going to start manufacturing. And he found several decks in the archives in Turin. And so one of the first that he did was the Vergnano, and his wonderful boxes that are hand marbled paper with gold. Yeah. When it was first published, it won a prize in an industrial fair for its design. And I think it's kind of, if a person wanted to start exploring this kind of deck, this is like the quintessential one. It's very elegant, but one you can always tell you have a Piemontese deck because of the Fool. He has these puffy pants and a butterfly in front of him and a Phrygian cap. Very, very different. And then the Bagato is actually kind of I think a Milanese, because he's got cobbler's tool. He looks like a regular TDM Bagato, but he has cobbler tools like the Soprafino and the other Milanese.
Yes, he's an artist. I mean, he's a shoemaker, shoe repairer.
He's an artisan, a shoemaker. And then and another one with the Pope, he doesn't have a cross. He has usually like a tulip or a flame or something weird at the top of his staff, but he doesn't have a cross. And apparently in the mid 1800s, all of a sudden in this region, they just went in for fancy decks, very beautiful decks. So another one that Giordano did was Perrine, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Yes, of course.
But that just really, I'll just show a couple of decks, but here's a couple of cards. Here's the Star.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Cheryl, try to hold them back just a little further, like just a little bit, so you can see the whole card, if you don't mind.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah, like that. That's beautiful.
This is the Perrine.
Yeah, the Perrine. That's a star, and it's interesting. The moon. It's very much like the ancient Italian tarot, the Avondo brothers tarot, who are also in that region, where you have a lobster on a silver plate. This to me is like the picnic on the beach card.
Yeah.
And then
this is the second wave, the second Italian wave of tarot.
Yeah, it is really. And the lovers, very elegant couple in their garden, which is kind of like the well-dressed couple and the Avondo brothers and the Soprafino dancing in the garden. These guys are just kind of standing there saying, hey, my clothes are lovely. So
I think this is an important thing to explain, that there are two seasons of Italian tarot. We spoke about the first season, that we have seen about all the decks involved. Then tarot, we don't know exactly how, went in France. we have the Tarot de Marseille, and Tarot came back in Italy from France because after 100, 150 years, Tarot died in Italy, except from Bologna, the Tarocchino, and south, the Sicilian Tarot, and Minchiate in Florence. But the original Tarot, after the big wave, disappeared and developed in France. So these decks we have seen now are Italian decks made à la façon of French deck. Actually, they are they derive from Tarot de Marseille.
See, and that's where I also disagree with you a little bit. Yeah, the Tarot de Marseille did come back, but in fact, that was kind of Michael Dummett's thing. In fact, he said that the Dodal deck came back to Italy, and that's where these Piemontese decks come from. But
no, not Dodal. I agree that it was not Dodal.
Okay, maybe I might be wrong.
Before.
I might be wrong about that. Was some from Lyon, from that area? He said they came back, but actually, there's documentary evidence that from like the 1500s and people's letters and diaries where they talk about people playing tarocchi, in Turin and this in the Piedmont region. So I think that there was a continual. I don't think it ever died out. I think it was kind of swamped by the TDM, but I think that some things like the Fool with his puffy pants and his butterfly, you don't see that in France. You don't see that in the TDM. I think that maybe that was a local thing that got into to this kind of deck.
Now this is okay. Now the point is again star, moon, and sun. If you get these decks, these Italian decks, you have the moon from TDM. Actually, it's more Besançon, the moon.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
But it's still French. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that because these same printers were doing straight on Tarot de Marseille decks. They had a whole line of different kinds of decks, and so of course the Tarot de Marseille greatly influenced them. But I'm just saying that I think there are little hints of a native Italian tradition in Piedmont that never died out.
Mario, you mean the reason for writing Il Mondell'Angelo? The last book, the book written in Italian by Dummett. He said that people continue to consider the higher trump the angel, justice, judgment, also number 20. Between 21. So on this they say because they had the tradition, the old tradition with Angelo better than Mondo.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember the book. Yes, it's possible, very possible. There it remained a small place where tradition continued, but for sure was no more. It's so popular like at the beginning.
Yeah, but I just think that Dummett was wrong because he said Tarot died out totally, completely. It was gone until the French brought it back in, and I think that's too extreme.
Who's Dummett? Now Dummett's another historian, or is
Michael Dummett?
Dummett. Okay, I've heard the name. I'm just trying to remember who he is.
It's a nice story because it's the only professional scholar, I think, on tarot. But he was a literature, I think. He's an important professor of British literature. Yes, guitar.
Yeah, he was a philosophy professor.
Yes, philosophy. Yes. And
it's a big heavy book.
Okay.
So he used the scientific method of search to tarot. So he made some mistakes. I think that on this we agree with Sherryl. We don't agree with everything that Dammit said, but for
Well,
sure.
I don't know if he made mistakes. It's just that the book was written, I think, in 1970. So there was stuff he didn't know. But
Yes.
it is like the foundational book. If you want to be a tarot scholar, you got to get that book.
Yes. Yes, because it's made in the professional way. I mean, most of tarot scholars are amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, he was too.
Yes,
it was
an
a
amateur in tarot,
sideline.
yes, but
Yeah,
he knew the method because it was a profession.
Yeah, he knew the academic method, and actually
Yes, academic method. Yes, that's the point.
and his whole thing was the game itself, and what cards were played with what game. He was not interested at all in divination or the esoteric. In fact, he made a few little insulting comments about people who are foolish enough to actually read with cards and think that they actually meant something beyond the game. So,
Oh boy. So what do you think of the other books out there? Like, for instance, I know like Stuart Kaplan has a thing, Encyclopedia of Tarot. What did you think of that sort of thing?
First 2 volumes at least.
4 volumes. I've got them all right there.
Yeah, that's something I consider investing in, especially now since he passed. It's the price has gone up on eBay. But yeah, at least what I've been looking at. But I do really, they're pretty expensive to begin with. They've always been. So I was considering getting it, but I wasn't sure if it would have been worth the investment or not. If it was dated, you know.
It depends on what you're interested in. If your focus is the Visconti Sforza, I always tell people to get the second volume. There's tons of biographies and stuff in there. The first volume, it almost looks like he meant it to be a standalone
Yes.
book, that it goes through the entire history, but there is a lot in both volumes 1 and 2. There's a lot about the 15th century. I couldn't exist without them. And I mean he like all those printed sheets that Marco just showed up, they're also in the encyclopedias, and a lot more. There's I mean, you have just about every deck that has ever been printed at your fingertips if you have those encyclopedias.
Yeah, that's really incredible. I really wish, and I say this all the time. I think I've mentioned it to you before, Cheryl, but I wish there was like a coffee table style history of Tarot de Marseille. I know you're more into the Italian stuff, but it would. I when I saw that sheet, the carry sheet that you showed, I thought to myself that would be the perfect picture in a book, like to show how Tarot de Marseille began, and have some. It would be a great book to write. I don't know. You should maybe consider writing a book on the Marseille, because there really isn't anything that exists. I know that I just saw that they translated Paul Marteau's book into English. I saw that, which is pretty popular. I don't know. I think he was a bit of a historian on Tarot de Marseille, but I'm not exactly. I'm not very familiar with his work, but I think he was, an amateur type, more of an artist, but I don't really know too much about him, but I know that his book has been circulating.
Yeah, I have his book in French. His card meanings are really kind of out there.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they're kind of very, very personal. But one thing he did was he did talk about paying close attention to the cards themselves instead of layering on like Kabbalah and stuff like that. It was like count the number of leaves, like he would be counting the number of veins and leaves, and pay attention to the colors. So pay strict attention to the material reality of the card. But then he gets off. His card's interpretations seem to be kind of metaphysical and kind of personal also.
I see.
So it's a little bit of both.
I really like his deck. That's why I was interested in him to begin with, because I'm actually doing a restoration of his deck now. I'm redoing the line. It's basically the same line work as Grimaud, but I want to recolor it the way that Grimaud 1930 was, just as a fun project for myself, because there aren't any good versions of that original 1930 Grimaud deck. and I love the blue tones. It's very similar to one of the Colberts in the museum that I have seen. It's a Camoin. Like, I think they did it around. They did it in the 60s again, Camoin. I think there's a facsimile floating around. I don't know what it's called, and I don't have it handy, but the blues look very similar to the blue that was in the 1930 version. But then Grimaud went, and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole and I can always edit this out, but they did all the carnival colors and so forth in the new version. So do you know what I mean? So it was kind of like, I don't know. I just don't like the way they redid the Grimaud. Anyway.
But you have an idea that, I mean, that's for somebody, certainly not me, but yeah, to do a really nice book on the Tarot de Marseille, all the different kinds, the different publishers. I mean, that would be, just a fabulous book.
I mean, there's nothing really out there.
Right. You already know.
Yeah, maybe you could write the book.
Yes, I think he could write the book.
I thought he was working on something, if I wasn't mistaken, but I don't know if it's going to be exactly what I imagine, like an entire history of. But I will definitely buy his book. I love Yves Renaud. I love his work. I like his texts are wonderful. I'm actually interviewing him on my channel in June, I believe.
Oh, really? Oh,
cool. Do you have an interview with Yves?
Yeah, he agreed to do it when he releases his 2 new decks that are coming out in June, and I'm going to include them in my Titans of Tarot series.
I have to look at this video.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting. Yeah.
Do you know what his decks are that he's coming out with? Because I hadn't heard about that.
Well, so yeah, I'll send it to you. I don't know exactly what they are. I don't even know if they're public yet, because he might. Okay. You know what I mean? He might not have made it public.
Well, I don't want you to give away secrets.
No, I'll look into it for you. But no, they're historic decks. I know one of the pictures that I saw, and he said he was not redoing it, was I'll never remember the name now. The very colorful Marseille that preceded the Grimaud deck. It was sort of the one that Marteau. It's a Bessestan. It's the one that preceded that. It's very colorful. It's got orange and blues in it.
I think it's one of the 2 decks, the 2 last decks he made.
The one from Switzerland.
It's possible.
I think one of these decks was a Besançon.
Oh, that was the Berger and the Jorgensen or whatever that he did.
Oh, the Jurger.
My pronunciation is always the worst. I apologize. Jurger and Jorgensen, maybe, possibly. Those were the 2 Besançons that he just released, I think. But yeah, he's got a mini version of something coming out and something else. Not really sure exactly.
Yes, they have 15 of his decks.
Okay. Very cool.
Yes, 15 too.
Yeah, I actually have to get a few more of his decks, because there are a few. I didn't get the Besançons yet, and I like, first off, his card quality is always great. It's always slightly different, but it's always good. And I just really, really like it, whichever printer he uses. And my favorite from him was the Tarot Result. Have you seen that one? The Tarot Result by Ben Gross. It's a modern deck. I have it right here. Just a moment. This was based on the Jean-Pierre Payen, but
Yves make this?
He printed it. He printed it for. He published it through his company for an artist named Ben Gross, and I don't know if you can see the hangman on the wall. My original painting there.
Oh yeah.
On the wall is actually an original Ben Gross. He's a really great artist. And I got into him when I saw this deck, but it's really phenomenal. So it's a Type 1 Tarot de Marseille,
Wow.
But let me see. I think I have Marco still pinned here. Hold on. Oh, no. Okay. Just wanted to make sure you guys could see it in the video. So it has like these really cool borders, and it's just really cool colors.
I like that blue, like a teal blue, almost an
Yeah, oh, it's
aqua.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
did I show you the backs? The backs are great.
Oh,
The cards feel really nice, and it's a historic deck. It's based on the work from Payen, like I said, but it's just it's recolored, and it has these really cool. It's a very artistic deck, and so that led me down the rabbit hole of showing his or looking at his majors only decks. He had a few which I purchased through his website, and of course the piece of original art was nice too. I don't know what I did with the other thing. Yeah, bit of a rabbit hole, but
wow.
bit off topic there, but that's okay. I had to show you
Hey,
that.
it's Tarot, so that's not off topic.
Exactly. Yeah, that was really one. I think it's just maybe one of my favorite Evernal, and of course it came in this really nice box too, which
Oh, wow,
has
different
really,
kind of box.
yeah, it's like more. It's got the felt kind of interior. It's magnetized, and the cover has an almost engraved quality to it. It looks like a mosaic. It's like it feels incredible. It's
I can
really,
see
really
how the
nice.
light is playing on it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and there were only 600 made, so.
Oh, really? Oh, that's yeah. Because I'd heard of that, but I wasn't really familiar with the deck, so I'm glad to see it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, another one I was going to show off. I'm procrastinating on my next blog post. What I do with the deck here. Oh, it's talking about different regional styles. In Italy, this is Milanese, and this is Giordano Berti just came out with this within the last month, and it's Eduardo Dotti's deck.
Oh, yes.
And Eduardo is the son. His father, it's all, and he used his father's plates. His father did a Milanese deck. It's very much like the Soprafino 20 years before that one. And they were kind of knockoffs of, and these last two are by Il Meneghello, the actual Soprafino deck. And this is like one of my all-time favorites. I don't, as a lot of people say, oh, the Soprafino is so beautiful, it's their favorite and all that, but I'm not real crazy about it because they have the face, they have these little pink faces and everybody looks, I don't know, they just, I just don't like the faces, but I like Dotti's. Actually, because Gumpenberg, he did the original Soprafino decks, and when he died, two people spun off from him. His son-in-law, who I believe was named Lamperti, set up his own workshop, and Dotti, they think, probably was an employee who went off, and he did his own version of the Soprafino. And when he died, his son took over, and his son used some of his same plates. But what is interesting, look at the Empress here. Her shield is blank. Things changed politically. That eagle on the shield represented the Holy Roman Emperor. Emperor was out, so you had to remove from your playing cards any crowns, any eagles, anything that would remind people of the Holy Roman Emperor. So this guy's cards are identical to his father's, but he had to make those changes. But the cards themselves are just, so here again with the Milanese tradition, we have the Bagato, and he's a cobbler. He doesn't really look like the French TDM a whole lot at all. But these cards are just very, I just love the clean lines and the colors, and there's a typical kind of a Soprafino lovers card.
And here again,
it's Milanese, but here again, you have the French TDM with the 3 people, but there's kind of a difference. With the TDM, you have 2 women, like the younger one. You've got a man. He's standing between a young woman and a man with a crown who has his hand on his shoulder. And it almost looks to me like, because the next card, the card that trumps this is the Chariot. This is 6, Chariot is 7. So it's almost like the man is saying, hey, son, you got to leave your girlfriend and you've got to go off in the army. You got to go, do your duty. And so, yeah, he does, because the next card is the Chariot. He ends up in his Chariot. That's, that's kind
Yeah,
of
I did notice that they had the one's male, one's female, and that definitely changes it a lot. Changes the card for sure.
Yeah, it really changes the story. And an interesting devil is kind of part TDM and part not.
Wow,
There's
it
two
looks
little.
sort of like Swift devils, like very very Swiss, like the Tarot Classic devil.
Oh
The
yeah.
Gasman maybe.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The Sanson too is similar.
Mm-hmm. So
The
this,
Sanson is more hairy on the body, but is
yeah. So Doty, he did his, like the star is very TDM, but I love the colors and just
wow.
much cleaner lines. I love the lines of this deck. So, but then, here again, we've got the boiled lobster, but he's not on a silver plate here. So but it's very much like the Soprafino. So that's, hopefully I'll get myself in gear, and I'm going to write a blog, and I'm going to compare all three decks, a pure Soprafino and the father and son, Teodoro and Eduardo. And
This has really been fun. Marco, do you have any other decks that you want to show, or anything you want to talk about in your
I'll show you the most expensive deck I have. The most important old ancient deck I have.
yeah, let's see
it's
that.
not Italian, it's French, but here we have an original Wirt planches. Yeah. Can you hear?
Oh, the Oswald Wirt.
Yeah, and Oswald. So what makes this the most rare or expensive deck that you have?
Because I have normal decks. I mean, it's the one I paid more.
Oh, he was being. I got you now. I didn't get the sarcasm there.
This is interesting. Maybe better for the French. Sorry, but we have two color palette in Wirt deck. I made because we have another one. I have two of these decks, and one cut and one on planches. Can you see that?
Yes.
Colors are more vivid.
So what's the difference between the two? One
was made in 1926, the other in 1927.
Wow.
Not sure. It is something I read on Tarot History group on Facebook, because it came out maybe last year, that question, because in fact now I'm thinking to make a second version of my Wirt, because my Wirt is based on this one. It's the first I bought. So my version of Wirt is based on this color palette. But now I have also this original cut as a deck with the other colors. So I'm planning to make another Wirt with these colors. What do you think, Sherryl? Too much?
No, do you have a gold one to show off? Because I do.
Sure.
Because I am not into esoteric decks at all, but this golden Worth is so gorgeous.
Well, if you want, it's augmented reality, because it's more shining than the original.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's the original really cool. Is difficult to show, but the original is gold ink, while mine is gold foil.
Yeah.
So it's not philologically accurate, but well, I prefer the gold.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I love that.
Yeah,
I actually just got a new Worth deck. Actually, did you see this one? The by Lo Scarabeo. It's a mass market. It's called the Symbolic Tarot Worth.
Unfortunately, I know this deck.
Oh, you unfortunately. I just got it. I won't show it because it's pretty redundant, but it looks very similar to the gold paint, and but they've embellished pips. They put pips on it, but I thought they did it in a clever way. I don't know, like.
Well, no comment.
Okay,
I've got to tell you, Marco has ruined me for mass market decks, because I have just about all of his as custom printed on special paper and the gold foil, and it's like I don't even want to look at U.S. Games or Los Scarabeo anymore.
I can't help it. I just have to get certain ones. I've stopped buying a lot of mass market, but there are certain ones that I had to get. I'm a big fan of the work tarot, and not that I like esoteric tarot that much. It's just I really like the aesthetic of it. I love the golden. I just love the look of it, and the fact that it had pips. The only other deck that was close to it that had pips was the Universal Worth, which looked nothing like the Worth Tarot. And speaking mass market wise, but they added Eudes Picard pips. I think it was based on Eudes Picard, which was the a bit different, Spanish, more Spanish system. But I like the way they did it here. At least they resemble regular pips, and there's nothing too special about it. But it's it's a workable deck for me, and you can kind of read it however you want. So Cheryl, do you have anything that you wanted to mention? Any upcoming projects or anything you want to talk about? Or
I can plug my latest series on tarot history. If you're interested in how the cards started in 15th century Italy and kind of the background of the cards and the artwork, because there's just a lot of art in that time period that resembles the cards. So you can see kind of the cultural background the cards came from. And then what I've done is I've followed each card from the 15th century jumped it to France, the TDM, how the French esotericists like Itala and de Gébelin, how they altered the card meanings, and then in London, how the Golden Dawn altered card meanings even more, and then the Waite-Smith deck kind of came out of that. And then in the United States in the mid-20th century, just this creative explosion of different ways of reimagining the cards. So I've got a section of my website, it's called A Journey Through the Trumps, and it's, I think we've got through, I think the Pope was the last one that we did. And I'm doing this in collaboration with another tarot historian who has a wonderful website. It's tarotwheel.net. His name, it's funny, I've known him for years and I don't know how to pronounce the name that he uses for his website. It's spelled IOLON.
Not Yolon?
It might be, I could think about 3 different ways of pronouncing it in in English, and he's English is not his first language, so it's I don't know how he would pronounce it. But anyways, his website, tarotwheel.net, he has tons of, he goes through Trump by Trump, and he has tons of art and cards to look at. So if you really want to get into tarot history in a painless way, both my website and his website are a good way to start.
That's phenomenal. I want to thank you guys for coming on and doing this. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, definitely.
And we will have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
And I will put all of Marco and Cheryl's information in the info box below. And you can always, of course, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And thank you guys so much for doing this. And I wish you all the best. Hang around, though.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to meet you online finally.